you certainly have done a lot to help the world appreciate the value of and meaningful instruction around the loving kindness practice. And in your book, Loving Kindness, you called it loving kindness, but of course you could have called it equanimity in some ways, or sympathetic joy, or compassion, right? But you chose loving kindness. Could you just speak a little bit to those relationships around sympathetic joy, as important as it is, or equanimity, as fundamental as it is, and certainly compassion, although compassion is sort of building up in many ways through various teachers who are elaborating on it.
Okay, so there are 4 qualities that are normally talked about as a kind of bundle. That's loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And they're all very closely related, but they are distinct also. They have somewhat different sources and different challenges also. So loving kindness, I would call a fundamental sense of connection and a recognition of our interconnection. It doesn't mean you like somebody or you like everybody, certainly. But deep down, there's this knowing that our lives are connected. And it begins with yourself. It's a real shift in how we pay attention, many of us, because say thinking about yourself, maybe you pretty well only think about the mistakes you've made and your flaws and things like that. So it's giving a little airspace to wishing yourself well, just to kind of expand, beyond that fixation on what's wrong. Or you're in the habit. This is a very odd experience I had the other day, because I have a book coming out now, September 1st. It was going to come out June 2nd, but it got moved to September 1st. And it's about mindfulness and social change, of all things. So it's called Real Change. And I was reading out loud some of the guided meditations that were being recorded. And in loving kindness meditation, which is its own method of meditation, where you don't center your attention on something like the feeling of the breath, you center your attention on the silent repetition of certain phrases, like, may I be happy, may you be happy, as a kind of gift giving or offering. And you make this offering to a variety of categories, starting with yourself, ending with all beings everywhere, and what you do in the middle might change. And a very classical category right in the middle is someone known as a neutral person, someone we don't strongly like or dislike. So these are the people we normally overlook or we look through, that we're indifferent to, and that we objectify, not even because of bias, or prejudice, but just indifference. So the recommendation has always been, choose someone that you tend to run into now and then, because over the course of the meditation, where you may not even know their name, but you're thinking of them and you're repeating these phrases, you're wishing them well, and then you run into them, you often see, oh, there's some shift. I actually feel a connection to them I didn't feel before. So probably for over 30 years, the example we've used is like the checkout person in the supermarket. So I'm reading that out loud and I think, oh, wait a minute. They're not so neutral anymore, right? These are the people who are enabling us to eat. These are called heroes. These are like these amazing figures of respect. And I thought, oh, what a strange time. Like the metaphors are also crumbling. But that would be an example, that there are people we normally discount, we don't really care about, and yet we can recognize that this is someone who wants to be happy, just like me, and this is someone who's vulnerable, just like me, and so things really do shift. So that's loving kindness, and that's kind of the basis. And then compassion. My friend Barbara Fredrickson, who's a researcher at the University of North Carolina, once said something like, compassion is love that's looking at suffering. So it's the particular sense of poignancy or tenderness we get when we recognize, oh, it's hard. Things are hard. And if they're not hard now, we're all so vulnerable. Look at how quickly they can change. And so there's a caring that comes from that. Sympathetic joy is feeling happiness and the happiness of others, instead of feeling so jealous or envious, to really have a sense of joy rather than, competition just, that sense of I've been ripped off. It shouldn't have come to you. It should have come to me, which keeps us embittered. I mean, it doesn't take away from the accomplishment of the other. Too bad, we're just left miserable. And then equanimity, you called it foundational or fundamental, which is absolutely true. It's like the hidden ingredient in everything, because it's the hidden ingredient in mindfulness. Equanimity just means balance. It doesn't mean indifference or not caring. It's a state of balance. It's like perspective. And it's in mindfulness, it's the secret ingredient, because the awareness we are cultivating that leads to wisdom, that leads to insight, is not a reactive awareness. It's like you might hear a sound and think, damn it, that's not a mindful stance. Or I can't believe this feeling is still here. I've been meditating for almost 50 years. I'm like awful for feeling it. That's not a mindful stance, because there's no interest, right? There's no spaciousness, there's no interest. We're not going to learn much about that state because we're so caught in the reaction. And we say that equanimity is like the secret ingredient in qualities like loving kindness or compassion, because in slightly different ways, the great challenge with each of those states is not to be attached to an outcome. Like, may you be happy by Thursday, and I'm the great savior. I'm making you happy. I'm making everybody happy. But it's more like a freely given gift. Like, may you be happy, and we can't feel attached to how that's going to be received, or it's like giving someone a gift. If you're attached to them saying, that's the best book I've ever read in my life, you're sunk, because you don't know what they're going to say. So equanimity is the voice of wisdom. In the context of loving kindness, it's the expression of wisdom. And we say it's always got to be there. Otherwise, it's not really loving kindness. It's not really compassion.
Thank you. That's so helpful and so very interesting.